I think that is the most appropriate place to get started for today in looking at all the fresh faces that are out there. You know what? I recently met with Chris in person for the very first time. It was about a week ago. I took a flight down to Ontario and we did some strategic planning with some things relative to CTE Teach as we move into the next year and maybe the coming years after that point, assuming CTE allows us to continue doing this program, right? Molly, I'm looking at you. But it was so cool just to connect with him in person. And I was excited just to give him a hug. That may sound weird, but yes, I had my mask off and I did hug him because I appreciated him that much and how much I was able to connect with him over the last couple of years, and then it landing in that one moment. And we were able to do a ton in a day's time, go see a lot of things and a lot of schools. And Chris got to introduce me to some things that happen in Southern California relative to CTE and the CTE Teach program. And so we're excited to share some of those things with you today. And for those of you who've been a part of CTE Teach in the past, you know that we're all about sharing resources and making sure that you as mentors of new CTE teachers have the latest and the greatest, right? Everybody has access to a lot of the CTE Teach resources on CTE Online or through participating in the past, YouTube, all the media channels. We'll talk about some of that stuff a little bit later on today. But being a full participant at this moment gives you current real-time access to resources. And so one of those today is through the Orange Unified School District. And we've got a crew of individuals here to work with you all today and to collaborate with you a little bit. We'll get on to orientation the Orange Way here for the bulk of our programming. But outside of that, we're just going to get started as we normally do. So it's good to see your faces for those of you who are able to have your cameras on. And it's good to get together kind of as we start the holiday season, so to speak, right? We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. And as I laid out to our early career ag teachers in a video yesterday, we're ready for it, right? A lot of us are tired, even as mentors, right? Props, Jen, I see you there. And even so, as mentors, we're still the grand facilitator of how the narrative and the culture in our schools goes and how everything happens and goes down with our new CTE teachers. So we want to keep those things in mind as we move forward with today. As we do lay out on a regular basis, just try and make sure that your microphone is muted as we're rolling through today, unless you're in a breakout session and it's time to chat with those around you. Keep that off. That would be helpful. Feel free to keep your camera on unless for some reason you're in a distracting environment. Feel free to turn it off so that way we can all focus on the task and the information at hand. Attendance is kind of gathered through Zoom. So just make sure that your Zoom name is correct. If you want to include your LEA on there, that's fine as well, but make sure that's set. And then use the chat as much as possible. We save that, we review that. If for some reason there are questions that you have, feel free to throw those in there. And as we're going through our time today, we'll be able to address what we can. But if we can't, then we'll look at it and address those things after the fact. And then, as always, this session is being recorded, so we can share it out to you all after the fact, and everybody can benefit. Okay, today we're going to do a real quick icebreaker. After that point, get into some mentor chats, or what we like to lovingly refer to as our FaceTime, then have the lovely ladies from Orange Unified present orientation the Orange Way. And then at the very end, as we normally do, we'll share out some pertinent program information just to help make sure everybody is on the same page. So, simple icebreaker for today. In the chat, type in the most unique Thanksgiving dish you have ever either made or eaten. So the most unique dish, if you can think of that. That's awesome. I see some good stuff in there. Okay, well, hey, the ideas are plentiful and hopefully the food will be here coming in a couple of days. So maybe you gathered a couple of new ideas if you were struggling on what to make for the holiday or bring to a family gathering, a Friendsgiving, whatever that looks like. That's now the ideas are out there. Thank you. All right. Now, one of the best times that we get to have in the very beginning of our webinars are these FaceTime moments. So what I'm going to do, if you'll bear with me, is make some breakout space. And we're going to put about, say, 3 or 4 individuals in a room, give you 8 minutes, and they'll get to chat. Whatever you want to chat about doesn't necessarily matter, but I have been known from time to time to jump between the rooms just to hear what's happening, because there's some positive things, there's some things that are getting us down, challenges, successes, unique context, whatever that looks like. Try not to beat the subs thing to death because we know that's a problem. But if you have amazing solutions, then feel free to share those out. So I am going to recreate these. We're going to have 8 minutes again. So on my clock, I've got 3:41. That means that we'll be back here at 3:49, and hopefully with some good conversation in tow. All right.
That mom story was a great one.
How are we doing? I would be willing to bet that a majority of us did not want to leave our rooms because we were having some pretty good conversations. It's usually the case, right? Well, I heard everything from people talking about partnership academies to how students are doing, to candidates who may be reverting to only mediocre classroom management practices, to that there's a ton of stuff that's happening out there. And the idea on doing some of that FaceTime is so that way y'all can chat about those. Now, here's something that I would encourage you to do, and this may sound a little bit forward, but just consider it. Feel free when you get into a breakout space to share your name and maybe your email in a chat. Because if somebody talks about something that might be relevant to you or vice versa, that information is already out there and you can grab it real quick before those chat rooms get, or those breakout rooms get broken down and you'll get pulled back to a main session. It's a potential tactic for anything. So any big highlights? I guess I'll ask that real quick. Dangerous question, because I know we can share some good stuff, but any main highlights from your FaceTime?
Okay, so I guess I'll go then. A main highlight, I think, in our group was the fact that regardless of the age group that we're dealing with, in terms of our student body, that the mentees have different struggles dealing with the different age groups, and also recognizing that a lot of our mentees, we have a variety. All of us have a variety. We have some people who are like, you know, you almost feel like they've been here in a past life as a teacher, because even though they're coming from industry, they know exactly what they're doing, or they're thriving, you know, based on the lessons that you taught them. And on the other hand, you have mentees that you have to kind of like poke a fork into them just to get them to make a move, because, you know, they're not done yet. They're not well done yet, you know, so just the challenges and difficulties and making sure that you're presenting a structure to your mentees that would then transfer over to, you know, a solid classroom curriculum for the students. And that was the main thing that I took away from our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else stand out worthwhile? And feel free to share it in the chat too, if there's anything specific. Okay. Well, go ahead, Zach.
We just had some really good opportunities. I have a couple mentees who had previous teacher experience, and so they really came in and jumped in with both feet, and have been doing a lot of collaborating between their CTE classes and some of the core classes, and that's been really fun to watch. Like, that was definitely a highlight last month.
That's cool. I'll bet y'all are coming away with some great ideas if you have an opportunity to observe already, just seeing what's happening out in those classrooms, right? In many cases for our mentors, that helps reinvigorate folks. Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much time out of the day because we have a lot of good stuff that's going to be coming at you. And so in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to the OUSD crew. And before I do, I want to preface what they're about to go through in terms that I stole things from them. I didn't get a chance to tell Christy and crew this, but as we were going through our initial organization meeting with them, they shared what they were going to share with you all today. And the day after that, I had one of my CTE credentialing webinars, and I stole some of their stuff to actually use in the webinar. So that's just a testament to the fact that y'all are about to get some great information from Christy, Natalie, and Ashley. And so I'm going to hand it over to them. Keep in mind, they're going to share a lot with you. And I know they'll give you the links, resources, and everything. But Christy's going to kind of take it away with a general overview of some stuff. And then we're going to put y'all back into breakout rooms for about 15 minutes, where you'll have the opportunity to do a deep dive in one of the topics. And we're going to give you the opportunity to do that twice. So not only are you going to get an overview of information, but you're going to be able to go a little bit deeper and have some more, in-depth conversations on topics about things that they do with onboarding new CTE teachers in Orange Unified. So without any further ado, I'm going to spotlight Christy Dorff. I'm going to hand over the stage to her. She is an amazing wealth of knowledge. She's got a great background. I learned recently in special education, and she does a lot in terms of culture and equity within her school district. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Christy. I'm going to stop sharing here, and then let me know how I can support you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Me, Natalie, and Ashley, and I know our coordinator, Katie Treat, is here. So we always want to say thanks to Katie for just allowing us to do what we want to do. And we're really excited about sharing this. We've been doing the CTE Teach a few years now, and we just love the program and what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. And let me move this over here, and I go to present. And it would help if I was at the beginning of this, because, why not have it all set up the way it's supposed to be? Okay, there we go. Hey. So when we have our new mentees and everything, we really wanted to take the aspect of meeting the teacher and student needs through the CTE Teach Mentor Program. I am Christy Dorff. I'm TOSA of Career Pathways and Inclusive Practices, and I'm one of the CTE mentor teachers. I'll let the other two ladies introduce themselves really quick.
Since I'm next up on the slide, I'm Ashley Egara. I am one of the CTE Teach mentors for OUSD. I'm also the school site professional 21st century learning coordinator, where we kind of help support the CTE program holistically, as well as mentorship. And then I do academic intervention, and I happen to be one of the athletic directors. So I kind of do a couple things. Natalie.
I'm Natalie Moore. I'm also a new CTE Teach mentor this year. I am one of the site P21s, or professional 21st century learning coordinators. I am an education pathway teacher, as well as a professional internship instructor. So I do a little bit as well, not quite as much as Ashley, but
So needless to say, we're really excited to mentor the mentors right now. We understand there's a wealth of knowledge and all different experience levels. So what I'm going to take you through right now is our initial overview that we do with our CTE teachers. And then when we're done, as Grant said, we're going to do breakout rooms for very specific sections in this. So if you miss something, don't worry. I'm not going to go too deep on the links into this, but you all, and if Ashley, did you drop it into the chat? To presentation of this, you're welcome to make a copy of this. As Grant always says, we always beg, borrow, and steal our stuff. So go ahead and do that. So after that, we always, like same thing. We just want to, we just always want to welcome our teachers. Ashley's going to be mentoring or going to be monitoring the chat for any questions. At the end of both the breakout sessions, we're going to come back and do a big, huge group debrief, because you might not have a question, but you hear somebody else ask it and you're like, oh, I really like that answer. So if we don't answer something, hold on to it until the very, very end. After a welcome, we always talk about our norms of the day. We want to share the air. We want to honor all the teachers' voices that we have in our room. We want to expect and always accept non-closure, because we might start issues now that may have to get tabled to another agenda. Us as adults, sometimes we like closure, but we can't always expect that. And then we always want to acknowledge and challenge everybody's assumptions. And this is mostly for teachers who are, they're coming new into the industry or out of industry, and they assume one thing, how it works in the industry, and it's completely different, as we know, in a classroom setting. So we're just asking them to kind of open their brains, open their minds to all of that. So really quick, we would just love for all of you to drop your name in the chat really quick and what district you're from, just so we can kind of see who our audience is here today. We always have this with our teachers, but go ahead and take a couple seconds, drop your name, drop what school district. I'll give you a moment. Nice. Love it. From everywhere.
I love seeing my NorCal folks in here. I'm from Santa Cruz, California originally, so I guess Central Coast, but even though I'm in Southern California, it's cool to see all these districts in here.
It is. I love it. Okay. So, all right, of course, there's always the agenda, because with our agenda itself, we believe that the CTE teachers should know all the components of the CTE program. And that's why we kind of do a deep dive with them in there, because we need to make sure they have the buy-in as to why this program exists and why it's here to benefit them. We want to know as far as, who your students are. They need to understand the students who are sitting in those classrooms. They need to understand the level of ELs they have in there, the level of students with disabilities, the gate identified students. We really want to make sure that they are aware of everybody that is present, and it's different from period to period. We want to know that we are here to serve their needs, because this program is driven by them, not us, because what we think they need might not be what they think they need. And we need to honor their voice and listen to what they're saying and be able to support them in the way they need. And then always talk about the next steps. Everything we do is always next steps. What comes next? What comes next? Because we want to make sure they constantly are aware that this is not a one-stop thing and no more support. Like, this is going to go on the entire time. So we start with kind of just, what does CTE teach? I'm sure everybody knows this stuff, so I'm going to breeze through this really quick. What it is, just the basic everything. We want them to be aware of just the basic components. We want them to aware of what our goals are, because this is a partnership. Yes.
Sorry, Christy. I knew that there are some people in here that are absolutely new to CTE Teach and they don't know, and they were actually looking for a presentation just like this. Mm-hmm. So just a heads up that there are some people in here. I didn't know this until we got into my breakout room. So thank you guys for sharing.
Perfect. Woo. Okay. So again, we have our mentor goals. We want them to understand where we are coming from as their mentor, what lens we're looking at. Like we want to keep CTE retention. We want to have fully qualified, fully satisfied CTE teacher. We want them to be able to implement instruction to the best of their abilities. That's our lens. And then we talk about what their goals are, what we feel we want them to focus on. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this as far as what goals we like them to set up for themselves. We want them to feel that they're supported, that they have a sound and effective classroom management. They feel comfortable in their instruction, especially with those special populations. We want to make sure that they understand instructional strategies, best practices to use in any one of their classrooms at any time. So from there, as Grant said, I have a huge passion. Before I started all this, I was a special ed teacher for years, and I was an EL instructional specialist. So this is a huge passion of mine because unfortunately in the CTE credentialing programs, they kind of scratch the surface on an EL student and they kind of scratch the surface on students with disabilities, but they don't do a deep dive. They don't do it justice and they don't do it at the level that needs to be done. So I really like to pinpoint what is scaffolding versus what is differentiation, and then interventions versus accommodations versus modifications. Those are very important terms when you go to looking at an IEP, when you're talking to a case manager, if they're talking to a parent, if they're talking to an admin. Those are very common language terms used in education, and they should understand the differences between all of them. And again, this is the stuff that we'll be doing a lot of the deep diving on. And then I always go into doing a data analysis form of looking at the students that are in their class. Who are their EL students? What is their LPAC score? What are the sub-LPAC scores? What are their IEPs? Are they on a 504? Are they GATE identified? They have to know who is in that classroom to best serve that population. Then from there, we talk about our district does ARIES. There is a small clip right here that talks them how to read ARIES as far as finding their language code, finding their if they have a disability code, finding out their LPAC subscores. And I go deep into understanding what the LPAC actually is, the performance level descriptors. If they say a student is a level 4 compared to a level 1 or a level 2, what does that mean? What does that look like? How does that manifest into their classroom? And then our district does a reading inventory score, and it's posted on ARIES also, that they can see what level of skill level their students are reading at. And then now with students with disabilities, I go into how to read an IEP at a glance. It is a legal document that any caseworker has to send out, that IEP at a glance. Our district does SAIS. I don't know, some districts don't do that one, but they have to by law inform all the teachers of who's on an IEP and the IEP at a glance. It's very difficult to read, so I break it down for them. And then I also break down student disability descriptors, the most 13 common disabilities that you would see in your classroom. And then we talk about bringing it into a lesson plan. How do you look at all those populations? How do you accommodate and differentiate for those populations and scaffold into an effective lesson that every student has access to it? So from there, we start looking at what do they need as mentees. And what we start off first with is we have a mentee mentor checklist, and it is a specific document that they fill out during our first meeting. And Ashley's going to go more in depth with this. And we use this document as a living document. When we meet up with them and follow up with them, we constantly bring that document back up. We read the notes, we add more notes onto it so they can see their progress throughout the entire year, from where they started, from where they end. And it's pretty cool because they're like, wow, I didn't like, it starts blank. And then by the end of the school year, so much of it's filled out. It's actually really impressive to see it. It's pretty cool. And then we do have to do the observations. We let them know up front. We're not done in no evaluative in any way. We just want to come in and see all the amazing things they're doing in their class. This is where we also go back to their goals And we want them to kind of set a goal of what lens they want us to go into that classroom with. What do they want us to observe? Again, they're driving this process, not us. They might want to say, I want you to just look at my transitions. Okay, so I'm going to sit in your room and watch you how you transition from item to item to item. And again, then we do a debrief with it afterwards. We set more goals for the next time we go and see them. And then we always ask them to complete a support survey, because it helps us target what we need to do with them and what they want. Again, it just keeps those lines of communication open between us and our mentees. And then we, as a district, for our entire CTE program, this is where we really want them to feel a part of our OUSD CTE family, that they're included on their campus, that they're included in pathways, similar pathways amongst all the different high schools themselves, because we have 4 comprehensive high schools and 1 continuation high school in our district. So we have 5, and all 5 of them have robust CTE programs. We want to make sure that they are able to communicate with everybody. So we always put out a calendar, and this is what Natalie's going to be covering. We always put out a calendar at the beginning of the year, very specific dates, what they need to know, so they can calendar everything that they're going to need to know, meetings, PLC pathways, all of that right up front, because we don't want them to feel like they're missing out on something or feel like they are behind. We want to set their year up correct. And then we talk about the professional learning communities we have. Again, Natalie's going to go more in depth with this. We have pathway specific PLCs twice a year, one in the spring or one in the fall semester, one in the spring semester. And this is a place where all the like pathways amongst our district have a chance to collaborate and lesson plan and share ideas and consider that inter-district communication level that we really value with the teachers, and allows them to hear different perspectives from all different campuses. And then we talk about our next steps. You will see that they know exactly who their mentor teacher is. Since I am the TOSA and I don't have any classes I'm teaching and I go around to the district, that's why I tend to take a few more. But Natalie will also talk more about how this is divvied up and what things we look at when we go to start picking our mentees. And we'll keep them the whole year. And so just so know, for all of you, like I said, this was a very brief overview. You want to know more, so please don't be shy. You're gonna hear some great information from 2 other ladies and from me, and we are excited to be able to just do a breakout room and go really deep. And we are here for you. Everything is, we have all the links we have on any of our documents. It's view only, so take a copy of it. Take a copy, it's for you. So that's
awesome.
kind of us in a nutshell. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, that's us in a nutshell.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Christy. You know, one of the cool things that Christy helps remind us about is the fact that our CTE folks who are coming straight out of industry, they're not familiar with any of this, right? And even some of our teachers who have been teaching maybe even on a single subject for a little while, they may have an idea, but maybe there's not a really true calibration around what happens with an IEP or how the process happens on a specific school site. So I bring that up just because Christy helps us understand that between special populations, what the mentees need specifically and how they move forward with that as a school district is part of the CTE Teach program, right? It's going to look different in every school district. And maybe in your school district, there's an amazing onboarding process for understanding who special populations are within your district. But what we can pull away from Christy's presentation and what the 3 of them will go through here in a moment are the little things about how you survey your teachers or just calibrate around who they are as a new CTE teacher and how they're coming into your LEA specifically. That could be a great takeaway. So as we think about getting into these breakout rooms, we're going to do 2 different 15-minute sessions. So I mentioned that because if you've got a couple of mentors from one LEA here or an administrator and a mentor, think about delegating who's going to go to which breakout rooms because y'all are going to be able to choose. So I'll open these breakout rooms here in a moment. we'll have 15 minutes. You can pick whichever one you'd like to attend for that first 15 minutes. As Christy had mentioned, she'll go through special populations. Ashley will look at mentee needs and how those are assessed. And then Natalie will be going through next steps and some of the things that Christy just shared. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. Hang out in the larger room for a moment if you need to, but I encourage you to select one of those 3 rooms as soon as I open up all those spaces.
Okay. All right. So this is just kind of a big thing to ask any general questions. So when you go ahead and ask a question, please use our name, me, Christy, Ashley, or Natalie, because then we'll know who's going to speak on it, because as you saw, we all did our own thing. So I will open it up to whoever has a question for any of us.
I've got a quick one. How are your teachers teaching a full day?
It depends. It depends on how many sections they have allocated to them.
What is their feedback from all this organization and preparation that you've done for them? Is it inspiring to them, and
Yeah.
they are using the process versus you having to push them into the process?
I find overall that they are using the process.
Mhm.
They use a lot of the resources because we're constantly talking about those resources when
Okay.
they are in their pathway PLCs. Those resources are always put out. Those links are always put out. The website that I developed that is just for the CTE teachers in our district has all of those links on it. And if they ask questions, we always add we always add the link to that to remind them to go look at the website first.
Right.
And then we've had some of our CTE teachers, because, they can be with us for a couple of years. We've had a few of ours ask if they can come back in because they want more support. And
Right.
I find that those teachers, a lot of the teachers are still asking, even though they're not in the CTE program, they're still reaching out for support from us. So I think it's well received. It is a little overwhelming at first, and we go pretty slow with them. For some
The
that
documents are great. Documents are definitely great. Yeah, very useful.
good.
It
Well,
looks
I'm
like
glad.
It looks like we got one in the chat. It says, what type of support, if any, do you provide for teachers with grant writing, quotes, and requisitions? I can answer part of that. As the 21st Century Learning Coordinator on the campus, me and Natalie, we split the CTE teachers in half and by sector. And basically, we ask the teachers to get a quote for the item that they want. And then the district has a purchase request or a purchase expenditure request that we complete, and we upload the rationale for the purchase, the quote, and we gather all of the information that our site or that our district needs, and then we'll go ahead and we'll submit it. The grant writing is done, by our administrators. So Katie would be the one to probably provide additional information on grant writing. Katie, is there anything that you'd like to speak to on the grant writing?
Sure. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. So I just want to remind you guys that we are a large school district. We have 25 CTE pathways within our district. So we recognize that we are a very, very robust program. But what I think is really unique to us is that we have P21 positions. So I think before answering the questions about the grant, we probably should explain what that is, because both Natalie and Ashley are P21s. And so they really represent leadership at every single level. So if you want to kind of go over that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So as the P21, we're here to support the teachers on our school sites with anything that they need as far as resources for their classrooms. If they have any sort of problems with a student, if they need help with classroom management. So we're kind of like the CTE mentor on campus for all teachers, not just new teachers, which is really, really unique. And I think that really helps us support the leadership at the school site. And it helps to support, the leadership at the district, because we can they disseminate information to us, and then we help provide them with student opportunities in the community that students can go access internship programs, or they have job resources or scholarship opportunities. So Katie does a really good college career counseling newsletter that she'll send out that has a lot of different opportunities. And then we kind of disseminate that information to the teachers that find it applicable. Because like Katie said, it can feel really overwhelming to the teachers with all the information that can come at them. And we want to make sure that they only get the information that they need so that they don't have to filter through it and they don't feel overwhelmed. So we're providing you guys with a big picture of everything, but the teachers don't see all of this.
And then in terms of the grant writing, we take care of the grant writing that is applicable for our district-wide programs. And then we often will have our CTE teachers that are pursuing additional monies. And so what ends up happening is they do the draft of the grant and then they send it to our office and curriculum. And then we help them in terms of kind of beefing up the grant or editing the grant as needed because of the fact that we have so much experience with that. I have gone as far as, for example, with one particular teacher, myself and our executive director, we were on the actual committee. So we were presenting the grant information, really advocating for her to get additional funds. So it really is case by case and depends on what kind of support that our teachers need.
Thank you, Katie. Will there be hard copies of the surveys available? I think the surveys, you don't have the ability to file and make a copy, but we could probably make a template copy that you guys we could make a template that we share with Grant that you guys would be able to make a copy of and for yourself. So yeah, we can give you guys surveys.
Definitely. We may have a moment for maybe just one more piece of input, Kristen.
Anything? Any other questions we can answer?
All right.
So I think it's important just to note a lot of what the ladies presented today is all about best practices. So they've developed quite a few templates that really can be used campus-wide. It doesn't have to be just for CTE. So for example, the mentor checklist, that really would be a best practice for welcoming any new teacher, regardless if they're in CTE or in a core content area, to your campuses. So we strongly recommend that you copy all of the templates that they've taken all this time to create, because quite a few of them are absolutely excellent. And you know, I'm so proud of this team. So thank you so much for presenting, ladies. You guys did a wonderful job.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you, Katie, for allowing them to come into our graces for a little while and for, you know, collecting them all together and getting those great minds in the room, because it obviously shows. So, well, snaps for the crew in Orange Unified. Thank you all for what you presented today. And then just as a reminder, and Ashley kind of touched on this, that all of the materials that we share will be compiled together, put on our website, and they'll be put on CTE Online as well. So they're available to anybody within about a week, usually, of the webinar. And then after that point on CTE Online. So, all right. So now I get my little 5 minutes of fame, if you will, just to touch base on CTE Teach program information, make sure we're all on the same page. So the things that we want to spotlight here are just some reporting dates. Well, remember that Q2 is technically from October 1st through December 31st, which means that we'll have through December for those mentors out there to collect hours and evidence and put information in their logs. And then that information will be due to us on January 15th. So we bring that up because, as you'll see in a moment, we don't have a webinar scheduled in December. Give you all a little bit of time off and time for reprieve. So think about the checklist. If there are any administrators left in the audience, we'll have some surveys that'll be coming around to both mentors and the mentees. And if you have any questions about your logs as you're building them up, or administrators as you're providing some oversight on those, just let us know. And before November 15th, we should have scheduled a visit with the site administrator and the mentors, just to touch base and make sure that we're all on the same page relative to orientation. There's a map there, and then if you want to schedule with Chris or I separately, you all can select the appropriate links. And then our webinar dates, as I mentioned, we've canceled our December 20th webinar for that month, just to give a little bit of time as it gets close to the Christmas and other holidays. And then the next time we'll see each other is January 18th, 2022. So just make sure that you put that on your calendar if that's one that you want to attend. We're going to be talking about engaging students in SEL and special pops. So it's going to be a little bit of an expansion on what Christy did. But if there are any other resources that we can share and compile from our network, then we're going to share some of those. Okay. And then you could register at this link. Again, we'll share the slide deck with you all. Keep in mind all of the media resources. So mentors and even administrators, as y'all are putting together programming for your new CTE teachers, there's a variety of things. And the cool piece about, say, our last webinar that's up on YouTube already is that it's all time stamped out. So that way you can direct new teachers to specific points during those presentations. And then here's the thing that we'd like for you to do before you leave us today. If you can, throw this into the chat, complete the survey, give us an idea for how everything went. We know that you've provided some feedback to well, it's not for October, that's okay. We didn't change that piece, but we know you've provided a little bit of feedback to your facilitators in the breakout sessions. We want to get an idea for what that looks like right now for this month. And then after that point in time, if you finish that exit ticket, then we'll thank you for spending some time today. I'm going to stick around for a moment if you would like. And I see the question, so I am going to go back and copy the link for registering for the next one. If you'd like to do that now, put that in the chat for anybody who would just like to get that set up and ready to roll. Otherwise, that is all we have for you today. So we will see you next time.